and welcome. My name is Adesoa Ero. I'm going to be the MC for this occasion, and my role here is really to help guide the conversation today. Before we get started, I would like us to stand up for the national anthem, please. Thank you. It is a pleasure to welcome you to the Black African Educator and Learner Experience Roundtable. This is a community-led event that is intended to explore the experiences of the Black African community within the education system. So whether you are a learner or an educator, this space is for you. And even if you were not able to go through the entire system, this space is also for you. We are gathered today under the special invitation of our host organization, Covenant Information Empowerment Services Incorporated. Please give them a round of applause. Today's event would also not be possible without the generous support of our funder, the Canadian Race Relations Foundation, CRRF. Please give them a round of applause. Today is more than a meeting. It's really an opportunity for us to listen deeply, to learn from each other, but to reflect on our respective experiences and how that has shaped the journey of life that we're on right now. And so throughout today, I want to encourage everyone to approach the conversation with curiosity, with openness, and with respect. Some of the things you would hear today are going to affirm you, are going to affirm what you already know, and some things are going to challenge your assumptions and perspectives, and perhaps even open you up to other perspectives that you may never have considered. So the subject of racism is a tough one. However, we're here to have a solution-focused conversation. Thank you for being a part of this event. Thank you for choosing to spend your Saturday with us. Thank you for choosing to come and lend your voice to the discussion and contribute in such a meaningful way. And so for the rest of this event, I'm going to refer to our host organization as CEAS, which is the acronym, and so you know what I'm talking about. As I mentioned, my name is Adesoa, and I've been the consultant for CEAS for a lot of years now. And so as you hear me speak today, you're going to hear me say a lot of "our," as if I'm a staff of CEAS organization, but it's so close to me, I feel so ingrained in the organization that I'm inclined to want to insert myself into the organization in one way or the other. And so, before we move further, I also want to do a land acknowledgement. I acknowledge that we are gathered on Treaty 1 territory, the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. We pay respect to the indigenous ancestors of this land, and we commit to the journey of reconciliation and healing. And so, for housekeeping, we have the washrooms all the way to the back of the room, and we have the food station as well at the back. So, if at any point you want to get up, get a refresh, please feel free to do so quietly. But there's lots of food that are constantly coming out of that kitchen that I'm sure we can all perceive the aroma, and hopefully it's not too distracted. But please feel free to take the time to take care of yourself. I also want to acknowledge that what we're going to be talking about today is a tad difficult. So if there's any part of it or at any point you feel like it's a bit too overwhelming for you, you're getting maybe overstimulated, feel free to step away for a bit and regulate yourself, and you can come back when you feel like doing that. Okay, so with housekeeping out of the way, I want to now recognize some special individuals that we have in the house. And I will begin with the CEAS Board of Directors. So if I call your name, please feel free to just identify yourself by waving to everyone in the room. So I'm going to start with the board president, Pastor Ademola Atilola. Please give him a round of applause. We also have Elder Vasco. Please give him a round of applause. I also want to recognize the presence of the organization that has made today possible, the Canadian Race Relations Foundation, and the representative today in the person of Simi Dio, the regional coordinator for the Prairies and Nunavut. Thank you so much for being here today, and we hope that you have a good, meaningful time with us today. Last but certainly not the least, this event would not be possible without the presence and contribution of a lot of staff and volunteers. So volunteers and staff in your house, I just want you to give us a shout out. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your contribution. And we hope that people show up for you as you have shown up for CEAS today. So I'm going to move to the first agenda item. And so I have the esteemed pleasure of inviting CEAS's Executive Director, Mrs. Folusho Atilola, for her opening remarks. Please give her a round of applause in the front of the stage.
Thank you so very much, Adesu Ero. You are almost like my twin sister, it's just that our colors are like a bit different. Thank you so much for being part of this organization from the very beginning, and thank you for the tendering. And I want to believe we are actually evolving greatly. I want to especially say good morning to everyone here present, the distinguished guests, and all members in the house. My name, as said earlier, is Folusho Atilola, and I have the honor of serving as the Executive Director of Covenant Information Empowerment Services. So, on behalf of our board, staff, and many volunteers who have dedicated their time to make this day possible, we warmly welcome you. Whether you travel across the city or from another province, whether this is your first time attending an event like this, or your 58th time, we are truly glad to have you in our midst. Our sincere gratitude goes to the Canadian Race Relations Foundation, whose funding and partnership made this entire project possible, and Simi Dio, the regional coordinator who is with us today, representing the foundation. You are welcome. Our facilitators, moderator, and project team, many of whom have spent the past several months in preparation sessions, outreach calls, and planning meetings to make this day possible. I appreciate you all. Every participant here present, the educators, the students, the community members, the people who are no longer in the formal education system, but whose experience matters as much. You did not have to be here anyway, but you chose to be. That choice is the art of this project. Thank you very much. Why this project exists? CIS was founded on a simple belief that communities are best positioned to identify their own challenges and to shape the solutions that follow. We work across education, mentorship, and community-based support with the conviction that lived experience is knowledge. Knowledge that does not show up in most institutional reports, and that deserves a place at the table when decisions are made. That belief is exactly why we're here today. Black African communities across Manitoba, youth educators, and families have long navigated barriers in education and employment that are too often invisible to the system meant to serve them. There are barriers to entry for Black African educators trying to enter KG to 12 and post-secondary institutions. Students experience racism in classroom and always, sometimes for the first time, and without the work to name what happened to them. Without the words to name what happened to them. Some young people and adults have been pushed out of education altogether, and their voices are rarely invited into rooms like this one. Today is about changing that. We do hope so. Even if only for one day, even if only by a small amount, we are bringing together youth, educators, school divisions, post-secondary institutions, and community organizations because the people who experience a problem most directly are the people best equipped to describe it and to point towards what needs to change. What we share today will inform a community report on the barriers facing Black African educators and learners in this province. Complete with recommendations grounded in your words. It will shape how our partners and we think about equity in education going forward. Your word has weight here. Your voice, your word has weight. What today will look like? After this opening remark, we'll move into different 5 breakouts that our MC will be telling us about. Each of these spaces is led by a trained facilitator who has completed dedicated preparation specifically for this work. These are not lectures, but conversations structured to let real experience surface and head carefully enough that no one is left to navigate surrounding difficulty alone. Across all 5 groups, the themes are the same that brought us together. Barriers to entry for Black African educators, student experiences of racism in the classroom, and what we have to come to call pushed and left out. The experiences of Black African youth and adults who have faced exclusion in education and employment, and the resilience they have carried through it. You will not be asked to relieve trauma for an audience. You will not be asked to represent your entire community single-handedly. You will be asked gently to share what you are comfortable sharing and nothing more. Before we move into breakout session, I want to be direct about a few things because how we hold this room matters as much as what gets said in it. You have the right to pass. No one is required to share anything, ever. Today, silence is a valid response, and it will be honored. Confidentiality matters as well. What is shared in your breakout session stays in that session. When teams from today appear in our final report, they will appear as teams, never attributed to individual or identifying. This is not a space for assigning blame, debating whether racism is real or relitigating anyone's individual experience. It is a space for listening and for some of us to share parts of our own story we have not said out loud before. If at any point today becomes heavy in a way that is hard to carry, please do not hesitate to step out or simply tell your facilitator you need a moment. That is not a disruption in this day. It is rather part of it. In closing, a lot of consultations happen in this country, and a lot of reports get broken, but not all of them lead anywhere. I will not stand here and promise you that everything in today's report will become a policy, or that every barrier named in this room will be dismantled by September. When we work on what we're working on, what I can promise is that we built this project to actually listen, and that your words today will travel further than this room. Thank you for trusting us with your time and as much of your story as you are willing to share. I appreciate you, and I do wish us an eventful day. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the insightful opening remarks and for the reassurance of this being a safe space for everyone to share, or not share, and just hear, listen, and reflect on what we're gathering today. Moving on to our keynote address for this almost afternoon. I'm going to introduce him before I invite him over. Our keynote speaker for today is Dr. Rotimi Aluko. Dr. Rotimi Aluko is a professor and Tier 1 Canada Research Chair in the Department of Food and Human Nutritional Sciences at the University of Manitoba in Winnipeg, Canada, where he serves as the Director of the Richardson Center for Food Technology and Research. He holds a PhD in food science from the University of Guelph, Ontario, an MSc in biochemistry from Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, Nigeria, and a bachelor's in biochemistry from the University of Lagos, Nigeria. Dr. Aluko joined the University of Manitoba as the assistant professor in 2001 and became a full-time professor in 2010. In addition to over 360 peer-reviewed journal article publications, he holds 2 patents on health-promoting food proteins, one of which was licensed to the Canadian nutraceutical company for the purpose of commercialization. He has produced over 100 trainees in all categories, including undergraduate, graduate, and post-secondary researchers. The American Chemical Society has featured novel scientific discoveries from his lab twice in 2009 and in 2018 as a global press release, including the discovery of novel antihypertensive peptides and bitter taste blocking peptides. He received the University of Manitoba Merit Award in 6 different years for outstanding achievements in research and service. Dr. Aluko has been recognized in multiple years by the Clarivate Analytics as a highly cited researcher, top 0.1% of the world's scientists, with published scientific journal article citations recorded in the top 1% globally. Please give him a round of applause. And I'm not done yet. In 2022, he was the recipient of the American Oil Chemists Society, AOCS, Lifetime Achievement Award for outstanding research work in proteins and co-products. He's a fellow of several professional organizations, including the CIFST, Institute of Food Technologies, AOCS, International Society of Nutraceutical and Functional Foods, International Academy of Food Science and Technology, and Royal Society of Canada. He currently serves as the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Functional Foods. Dr. Aluko previously served as the president of the Nigerian Association of Manitoba Incorporated from 2008 to 2010. Please join me in giving him a round of applause as he comes up stage.
Thank you, Adesua, for that wonderful introduction. I want to thank you for inviting me to be part of this wonderful event. I really appreciate the honor given to me to give a few short talk in terms of my experience in Canada. Of course, as you can probably know now from the introduction given shortly, I've been in Canada for quite some time. I came to Canada in 1991. That's about 35 years ago now as a PhD student at the University of Guelph. So I've had a lot of experience, and I just want to share some of this with you in the next 15 minutes. And I will talk about my experience using three subtitles or topics. The first one, I call it Get to Know Your Experience and Get to Know Your Workplace, because not everything is racism and not everyone is a racist. Okay, why do I say that? Okay. The reason why I say that is because part of human nature is to associate with people who are like you. And people who are not like you, you tend to suspect, sort of not like them. And the most important thing is for you to be yourself, all right? That is, try to be who you are, okay? And I say this because when I came to Canada in 1991, as a student, my supervisor then was such a wonderful person. I never, even though I used to hear about racism and stuff like that, and I'm just being very, very honest, throughout my 5 years of my PhD, I never experienced anything like that, simply because the environment, and that's why I say know your workplace, okay? The environment was such that it was a multicultural environment where students from various countries, backgrounds, right? And so we all sort of mixed, we all interacted as a group, and we respected each other. Professors were very welcoming. I really didn't feel unwelcome, okay? And so it was a very, very good, for me, introduction to Canada. But then it changed. And when I finished my PhD, of course, I got a job with the federal government initially as a research scientist with Agriculture Canada in Saskatoon. So, of course, by now I have 2 kids. We moved to Saskatoon, and then that is when I knew that I had a lot of privilege in Guelph. Well, my experience in Guelph does not represent what happens all over Canada. Okay? And then the reality actually hit me. And why? So when I got to Saskatoon, of course, as usual, started my work, very hard working, as usually I am, built my research program very quickly. And then I remember a year after I started in Saskatoon, I was going through my records, some things at home, and I'm not even sure what happened, but I was just going through some documents, and I saw my convocation pamphlets. In those days, we used to have physical copies of the convocation ceremony, all right? And so I was going through my convocation pamphlet, and then I saw the name of one of my colleagues in Saskatoon, who is also a research scientist. He's a plant molecular biologist. I am a food scientist, but who were hired same year, all right? So I saw his name. Initially, I didn't even know that, I know he went to work, but I didn't know he graduated at the same time. But I saw his name. We actually convocated the same day in Guelph, all right? But why am I saying this? He was hired, he's a Caucasian. He was hired full-time, permanent position, all right? I was hired 3-year term position. And so it hit me. And that was the first time it actually hit me that, you know what? Maybe what I experienced in Guelph, all right, isn't representative of what happens all over. And the fact that, yeah, it is true, there is discrimination, okay? So this is a guy who we competed at the same time, we are classmates, we were hired at the same time. He was given a permanent, I'm not kidding, a permanent full-time position. I was given a 3-year term position with the threat that I could be fired anytime, all right? And so that was the first time that it occurred to me that such practices will exist. Because like I said, as a PhD student, everything was dandy, never experienced it, all right? So it really hit me, and I remember going to my wife at home, when I talked to my wife at home, and I was really very, very upset about it, very, very upset, okay? But of course, why am I saying this? What I'm saying is that when you even experience such things, don't let it weigh you down, okay? Because the best way to attack such a problem is actually to shine in what you're doing, okay? To show that, yeah, you know what, I'm better than what you gave, okay? And so I made sure that I poured my heart. Go with that, I poured my heart to my work, I remember then in my section, I had the best accomplishments, all right? And so I did really, really very, very well in my work. That actually gave me more impulse, successful, right? Because I thought these people really sort of undervalue my expertise. But now I'm going to show them that I am better than what they thought of me. Okay, so it made me to work really very hard to the point that I remember after 2 years, I actually got 2 offers to leave Agriculture Canada. One was at the United States. Second one, of course, was at University of Manitoba. And that was simply because of my record of accomplishments. Okay, while I was only 2 years in Saskatoon. So I remember when I came for the interview at the University of Manitoba, and the head of the department told me I was the 3rd person out of 4 candidates. And she was a very interesting lady. And she asked me, she said, you know what, who is the supervisor in work? And I told him, he said, can he give you a reference? Why not? You know, we are buddies. He said, I can show you if he gives you a reference, you got his job. And I know I got the job, even though the 4th person had not been interviewed, all right? But why am I saying this? Because of the fact that I didn't let that disappointment in Saskatoon overcome me. I overcame that disappointment by working very hard, by being very, very productive. And so my point is that even when you experience these types of discrimination, don't let it be a factor that will draw you back. In fact, let it be a catalyst that makes you more successful, okay, an achiever in life. So that's my first point in terms of getting to know your workplace and being able to overcome these types of discrimination. Okay? Now, the second part, my second point, I call it, let your work speak for you. Don't rely on excuses. And sometimes as human beings, we are very prone to use excuses to not properly do what we're doing. Right? And there are excuses that are genuine, don't get me wrong. Okay? I mean, if you are sick, for example, you are sick. Okay? But at the same time, as a minority, okay, when you have too many excuses, you look at it as you are being lazy. Okay? And so, you must be very, very hardworking, and you must make sure that what you are doing, okay, meets the objectives of your work, what you are hired to do. Okay, do even beyond, okay, what you're asked to do. Okay, shine in terms of what you do, okay, and be able to overcome, okay, these types of discrimination. And then I will give you a second example related to being able to work very hard, even in the face of discrimination challenges. So, about 15 years ago, I was working with somebody who, of course, on occasion, is a senior professor to me. And we wrote a grant application. And he was, of course, the principal investigator, right? He was the senior guy. I was the co-applicant. And of course, we got the grant. The grant was, was successful in getting the grant. And so we hired a student, a PhD student, we planned the work, and just as about the time we were going to start the project itself, we have the student in place, he retired. Okay? He decided to retire. All right? But he told me, oh, you can continue, you know what we're doing. And I said, oh, yeah, fine, no problem. Because that type of work, I've done it before. But then I got a shocker. The university, of course, based on due diligence, the university must inform the funding agency, I'm not going to name them now, that, okay, this person has left, and so this co-applicant now will move up as principal applicant in charge of the project. So, of course, the university informed the funding agency, as usual. Got a shocker. The funding agency came back and said, no, we are canceling the project funding. Said the funding was given because of that person that left. Even though I'm on the application, I actually wrote most of the application. And initially, the university thought they were joking. They said, no, we're not joking. Believe it or not, they canceled the project. They canceled the funding. They said, because that person left, that's whom we trust. We don't trust this guy. This guy is that black guy. They didn't say that way, they just saying it. So they canceled the project, they canceled their funding. They said, no, give us back. Whatever you have not spent, send it back to us. Of course, the university had no choice. They sent it back. So, luckily, that was when I assumed the position of director of the Richardson Center. And so I talked to my dean, and I said, you know what, this is very strange that a funding agency will do this. I'm a professor. I have a track record of doing this work. What is the rationale of pulling money? So he doesn't know. I said, okay, I will use part of my own funding as well as funding from it, since I control the budgets at the Youth Justice Center. I said, okay, I will do this and I'll make it successful. And that's what we did. Okay, so I took over, used some of my own grant money from other places, along with Justice Center funding and facility, and we got the project completed. Student graduated, okay, we got the paper published, all right? And currently, we are negotiating with an Australian company to license that technology, all right? Why do I say that? I give this example again, the fact that, okay, these types of discrimination can happen, but then, like I said, don't let it be a negative. Don't let it actually turn that negative into positive. Okay, in fact, my dean said, you know what? I sometimes say, look, just forget it. Okay, forget it, let the project go. I said, no, we're not going to do that. But I think this is very, very wrong. All right, I said, we're going to do it, we're going to publish it, and they're going to see it. Okay, they're going to see the fund, they're going to see that we actually did this work, it was successful. All right, and they will know, okay, that even though they pull their money, okay, we could still do this without their money. Okay, and that's what we did. Okay, and so again, let's not be too discouraged when we get these types of disappointment. So just sharing my experience and to encourage you to rise above, okay, this type of discrimination. And last but not least is my plea to you is don't be selfish. All right? Please don't be selfish. Okay? Because we are very few, especially as minorities. Okay, and therefore we need to be able to spread our talent. We need to be able to bless our community with our talent. Okay, we need to let our community grow on our wings. We must provide, okay, those of us who are successful, we must provide our wings, okay, for those who are maybe behind to fly, okay, to copy us, to take advantage of what we have and become very, very successful in their endeavors. And I will give a last example because I know time is going. When I came, let's say I came to the University of Manitoba, 2001, that's 25 years ago, okay? When I came to my department as a young, not really old, 2001, my department had never, and I mean it, they had never trained a black person at the postgraduate level. All right? I don't mean undergraduate. It's my department, they had never trained a master's student or a PhD student who is black. And so I went through the record and I was shocked. All right? I was like, why did this happen? All right? So I made a very, very, I made a decision that I'm going to change this. Okay? And so my first hires were all from Nigeria. Yeah, I did it. Okay? They were all from Nigeria. Okay? And I remember when I started doing this, of course we hear, noise, right? Like background, because my students being from Nigeria, I always tell them, whenever they come, I want them. I say, you are a pioneer in this department. If you don't work very hard, okay, you are going to basically, okay, you are going to, let those who are being negative have cause to continue to be negative. But I said, no, if you work very hard, you will change the situation. And so these were very hardworking guys, I tell them, And so sometimes, I always leave office late from 9 p.m., 10 p.m. I'll be leaving, and they'll still be in the lab. And I remember one day, one of my colleagues in Caucasian came to talk to me, and he accused me of running a slave lab. I'm not kidding. He said that whenever she's leaving, I said, why? Why do you treat your students like that? They're all here working. And I said, well, they have work to do, and they are doing their work. Did they complain to you? She said, no. Well, that's okay, just leave them alone. Okay. And so that's how it started. So they're getting awards, we're doing very well, bright students, At a point, one of my PhD students in Nigeria, was the best graduating PhD student at the competition, all right? And from that point on, believe it or not, everything changed, To the point that I remember there was time when one of them came and said, hey, by the way, how can I hire Nigerian students? I'm like, wow, things have changed, all right? And so when you come to our department now, you will see various faculty members now hire not only Nigerian students, but blacks. And again, I give this example because I want us all, to be the guiding lights, to let our light shine, to bless our community. Let's not hide our light. Let's not hide our talent, Let's spread it around because there's nothing wrong with us. It's just that we are never given that opportunity and then they blame us. If someone doesn't have opportunity, how can you then expect them to achieve? So please, whatever you do, right, wherever you are, forget about any negative aspects. You should be able to allow your light to shine, to benefit other people like you. Let them be, or let your achievements be an inspiration to those who are coming behind you, and change your environment. Let people see that things are different positively after you came compared to before you came. And I think that's how we can gradually, at least minimize the whole issue of racism and discrimination. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
I think those remarks are deserving of another round of applause. So two things specifically that I'm taking away personally from this conversation is that we are going to experience obstacles. It's bound to happen. It's a natural part of human experience and our journey through life. However, we don't want that to be a deterrent to accomplish the things that we want. And secondly, excellence cannot be ignored. It can't. So in whatever it is that we're doing, put in your best, and those efforts, you would reap the dividends of it as well as time progresses. Thank you so much, Dr. Aluko, for that inspiring remark. We're now going to move on to the reason why we're here, to have those conversations about what our lived experience looks like. Over the course of the morning and afternoon, we've gotten the opportunity to hear from our CEO as well as from our keynote speaker on their own perspectives of what we need to be thinking about, how we can challenge our own perceptions and how we can walk differently in this life that we're being called to live in. So now it is your turn. So we are going to have 5 breakout sessions. So 5 tables essentially where we're going to be having conversation. And it has been broken down into 5 specific themes. So for our facilitators in the house, I'll just invite you to stand up now so that when it's time for our participants to move, they know how to find you. So I'm going to invite all of the facilitators or whoever is representing the different groups that is going to be speaking on behalf of your group to just get ready. I'm going to volunteer each group, so just be prepared when you hear your group, which is post-secondary educators. Oluwafemi Kasamoye, or a representative?
I broke out for secondary educators. We discussed some issues around experiences of Black students in schools, not just in schools, and how educators and staff navigate these experiences. We looked at how the system also affects the experiences of the Black students in these communities. The first thing we will talk about will be the schools and institutions. Generally, they felt that there's a bit of inclusion in the system. This is as a result of the decline in the racial discriminatory experiences that the kids already had in the school. They believe it was maybe more in the past, but in recent times, there's been a decline. And they predicted this to be as a result of the policies, the orientation, the trainings that most people are now having in the school. And that has led to a big decline. Although they recorded some unwritten expectations or nuances, such as maybe people naturally gravitating towards people they feel connected to. It might seem a bit like you're being left alone in isolation if you don't have someone that looks like you to connect with, or people just going away from their comfort zone to places where they can include you in conversations, in group conversations, and support you in the way you will be successful. They believe that people can still do better in that aspect, to be very conscious and intentional about their choices. We also talked about ways in which we can approach teaching to be inclusive of the Black and racialized students by identifying the gaps in the experiences, bridging gaps, and empowering them. We felt in a specific way we could do this is by building connections with the students, mentoring them, providing. When you build a connection, it's easier for you to approach them. You become more accessible to them. You can understand whatever challenges they might have. It might be as simple as just understanding the nuances in their language and their communication, and even directing them to resources, maybe guiding and counsel, where they might find information to be successful at school. We also said something about ways in which the students are protected in school, even though we understand that there were some challenges, but we prefer solutions to these challenges. We said we understand that some students might experience struggle coming into a new setting. It might seem as though they're really falling behind, and it may make them a very vulnerable person to experience racism in that setting. Because, well, you're falling behind, it's easy to just get a poor grade, and maybe you might have even gotten a 50%. But it's easy to give you 45% because, well, you're not even pulling your weight. But we said with policies in place, redirecting them to resources, clear expectations, procedures. Like I said, through the mentorship program, the students can also feel successful. And there was one important thing that we mentioned in the group was having a group of staff, especially from the Black community, that will be in authority to propose solutions and be a part of the policy-making process. Without that, they might not have the experiences of the Black community in the policy, and that can give a blind side, which is not intentional, but it could be a bias or systemic racism towards the Black community. But having people or members of staff, especially from different communities, in that process of making policy and high places in the office or the organization, it will help to include members of the Black community. And it also, they see someone who looks like them. Maybe not necessarily from experience, but if you've ever been in a classroom and students see that you're a Black teacher, they can easily walk up to you and say, well, I know you, they want to start talking, they want to say everything. And I think that gives them that sense of connection, and learning will come after that. They see somebody they can approach and has experienced something similar to them. I think we have more, but in case any of my group members want to add to this, but I think that's a very good summary of what we've discussed so far.
Thank you. Please let's give him a round of applause. So if I'm to deduce a few things from what our speaker has just mentioned is mentorship is important, so is representation, not only in Black students being able to see Black instructors, Black educators that look like them and have a shared lived experience, but also it's also critical for decision making. So sometimes what we may consider racism is just by default of omission. Right? If you're not in the room, you're likely on the menu, or how do they say that? So we need to be on the table where those decisions are being made, and if there is representation of Black educators at those levels of the organization and institutions, then they can be the advocates for the consideration that we want to get for our community, and also in advancing equity in education. Thank you so much, Femi. I'd like to invite Oluwatosin Atolola for the post-secondary students group.
Thank you very much. My name is Oluwatosin Arongwa. I am a facilitator for the K-12
K-12 students?
student group here.
Okay.
So the session was successful, but I would like to put my data according to the percentage. Okay. So for the session, 66% confirmed they directly witnessed racism, while 34% expressed they heard of it. 34 of those that said they didn't experience it directly said they witnessed other people experience it, and because of that, they intentionally avoid this set of students that practice racism because they don't want to get involved in their cabal, or they don't want stuff to happen to them. And they express those as the stuff like they do weed, they bring objects to school that could be harmful, and they didn't specifically mention the group of students, but they were like, they intentionally avoid them in order not to get into trouble in school. Some of the 66% confirm that racism is repeated by certain people or students in school, and after being penalized, they still repeat it over and over again. So the Black students feel frustrated because of that. 67% of my team confirmed that teachers also use the N-word, and Black students feel they are not listened to, but rather told that they are overreacting, or they tell them they are loud while trying to express what happened. That's for section 1. For section 2, about what adults do and don't do. The students express that nothing happens after racism occurs except for apology by the students, but the students still go back and repeat it again. And because of the frustration of going back to the teachers, the Black students just give up and do nothing, which is quite frustrating and tells on their emotions. It affects their studies and also affects everything happening around them. 70% of the population said that they talk to teachers that they feel comfortable with, but not all teachers listen to them. And they said they feel comfortable with teachers that are friendly, that are accommodating, and pay attention to how they feel, while non-approachable teachers cannot be avoided. They just do their best to do the required courses and move on. In addition, for the students, they said, for the students, they expressed that they don't feel respected when N-words are being used, but the Black students also expressed that certain Black students over time laugh over it when they are being racialized. Instead of standing up for themselves, they just laugh over it like they don't feel any pain about it. So because of that, other Black students that experience it, that witness it, don't know how to stand up for those that are experiencing it and are laughing as if it's not serious. In addition, about 33% mentioned that the way indigenous students are being listened to eradicate the racism, Black students also need to be listened to and also express that. And also express that the way culture is being celebrated, African foods also needs to be celebrated. Apart from jollof, they don't need to call students names because of the food they bring to school. Rather, they need to accommodate them. An example was in case of watermelon and how a student was stigmatized because of bringing watermelon to school. And the student felt reduced in terms of self-esteem. Another student expressed that some of our food are being appreciated by jollof rice. Example is jollof rice, but it can be, it's not usually discussed that apart from the racism people express, there's also microaggression in terms of African food. Thank you very much.
It is real. There's forms of racism that exist at the student level, and as the educators in those spaces, the onus is also on us to be able to address those complaints when they are shared with us, because it can genuinely discourage those who feel dissatisfied with how their cases of racism were addressed. I'd now like to invite Oluwatobise Atilola for the post-secondary students group.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Toby, and I'm the facilitator for the post-secondary students. My group, we discussed if racism is visible, was visible to them during their class and in their workplace, and majority did say yes. Because some of the courses we take as students, they're mostly dominated by Caucasian people, right? And you can go to a class and practically see that it's just one person, one Black person, or like two Black persons in that class. And so it is visible. We all said that it was very obvious that we're different, like our race is different in the class. And we also said that it did shape their experience. Like, it shapes their experience in wanting to do more, to put in their efforts to be the best, because they don't want to leave that Black people are not doing best, Black people are lazy, Black people are, so it motivated we Black students to put in our best and come out on top. And if racism shaped how they speak, how they talk, some have not experienced racism, and some have, and they've seen people who experienced it, that they experienced it in school, in housing terms, in workplaces, and it did shape how they spoke, how they appeared, and because if you have to speak in class or ask questions, you have to make sure you're speaking smartly, and so it did shape how they spoke and how they dressed, and especially in terms of Nigerian slangs, right? If you're speaking to Caucasian people, they practically would not hear you, so you have to change your accent and how you spoke so that they could hear you clearly, and so it's actually, they have to change their voices and change the way they appear. And also, there was one question that said, as your institution likely has some kind of equity, diversity, and inclusion office or statement, has that affected the experience in any way? this one was a positive feedback. They said it did affect them. It made them want to actually apply for it, like maybe like an application to a scholarship or something. And like there is an accommodation for like Black people. So it's because of that accommodation, it motivated them to apply for it. And like, you know, the policy was like, there's a certain aspect for Black people. So like that made them want to do it because there was an accommodation for it. If there was no accommodation for it, then probably the motivation wouldn't have been there to go for that scholarship or the award. And so when there was concern about like entering the workforce and like, you know, if you're applying for master's or education or workplace, there is always this thought at the back of our minds that like, oh, would they accept me because of my color? Would they accept me? Not necessarily because of the qualifications they had, but like there is this mindset that like, would they discriminate me? Would they not accept me for this? We also had that discussion like where it was tested, like someone tested if there was racism in applying for like a job and found out that it was true, like with your African name, your qualifications, they did not accept them, but they had to change their name. When they changed their name to like a Nigerian, sorry, like a English name, to an English name, and like they saw that they accepted them, that resume with the same qualifications but a different English with an English name, they were asked to come for an interview, they got more response than when they used their African name. So like it was very obvious that there is racism in like when you're applying for these awards, there is this discrimination present. And there was also a scenario where like when we newly come to school fresh from like African countries, it's hard to hear from your professors who are Caucasians, and there is always a struggle. And we're like, if it's possible for like the institution to do something to make students acclimatize into the education system while they're still fresh, it would really benefit them, because it was a struggle trying to understand what your professors are saying. There was even a student who experienced racism from their professor, and it was not a good experience. They had to make sure their voice was heard for that matter to be resolved. So there is racism in the education system, and they do experience it. Even they've not experienced, some of them haven't, but like they know people that experience it, and how to make sure that this doesn't affect their education is what we need. Like we need a way that professors and everyone, is like student groups that can address this thing, and I'm glad that we have this session.
Been able to identify that there are common themes here in terms of how students are experiencing the classroom environment and what institutions need to do differently to help close the gap, to make sure that we are also setting up our African students up for success. And whether that's having more Black instructors in class, doing more cross-cultural activities, especially at the start of a new semester, so that new students can find opportunities to understand the culture, get more familiar with other groups, be introduced to other types of cultures outside of their own, can really help lower some of these barriers that we are seeing in schools. The other group I'd like to now invite is, I think we've covered, so we have post-secondary education for educators, the educators group.
That's the K-12.
No, not K-12. So for post-secondary educators, so that was, what was that? Oh, yeah, we already did that. I think it's K to 12 educators?
Yes.
Okay, my apologies, thank you.
Dr.
Okay, where's the other mic? Thank you.
I'll do the best I can to summarize all that we covered. Yeah. Well, thank you to all the previous facilitators that have shared or given feedback on what they did in their group. In our own group, I think it focused more on us as educators, okay? And kind of the approach we took to this, it was more of a conversational kind of thing for us in our group. And I think what we did the most was sharing our different stories and kind of using that to tease out maybe where we have seen any form of racism, in our careers as educators. After much conversations and sharing our individual stories, maybe different things that we experienced, I think I just want to focus on our takeaways, from all that we discussed. We all had our stories, and I believe that every one of us here, we do have our stories, okay? So if there were things that we took away from all the different conversations that we had, I think we believe from, if I can say that for every one of us, from our different stories that we shared, maybe perceived racism, if I can put it that way, not like intentional racism. We talked about maybe challenges that are faced during maybe trying to get certified, as a teacher here, particularly in Manitoba, and maybe due to some, I don't know what to use to describe that now. Like you want to get certified, and maybe due to some gaps here and there, you had some challenges to be able to, get your certification as you really needed to. Yeah, it could be perceived as racism, but again, maybe miscommunication, communication gap, and all of that. That was how we perceived that. And of course, we talked about the fact that exposure is huge. The idea of exposure was something that we really focused on. And the way we approach that is the fact that whoever that you are relating with, it's all about how well exposed that person is. If the person that you are dealing with, maybe your supervisors or your colleagues, if all that they know is, or if all that where they have been always is just here, then don't expect much more from them, because this is what they know, okay? They don't know beyond whatever you're coming with. So in our group, we thought it was important for us to have an understanding of that. This person that I'm dealing with, who is he? Who is she? What is the level of exposure that this person has? Is this person well exposed, or is this person, just, somebody that is just here? So all of that, in our opinion, are pretty very important. So all of that said, if we can put it that way or this way, in terms of our takeaways and recommendations for us, we believe that despite the fact that we have perceived racism, right, if I can put it that way again, and maybe things that appear to be racism, not intentional in our own setting anyway, it's that for us as educators, if there's something that we need to arm ourselves with, perseverance, resilience to whatever kind of challenges that we might be faced with, while we're, going about doing whatever we need to do. You want to get your certification, for instance, and you are having a multiple curveballs, just stay persistent, just be resilient. Those challenges, they will always come, and it's important for you to stay focused on whatever you think you want, whatever your goal is, and make sure that nothing deters you from getting your goal achieved. Another thing that we thought we really start on is the fact that, we re-echoed what Professor Aliko said so much, the need for us to prove ourselves. When you prove yourself, when you're in that space, and every other person might be thinking, oh, she's black or he's black. What does he or she have to offer? For me personally, I don't believe in noise making. It's not about noise making. In your own quiet space, you're just there doing what you've got to do. And in no distant time, you can be rest assured that somebody, even when they don't acknowledge it, they know what you represent. They know what you stand for. So for us, it's like, you just know who you are, one, and prove yourself. It's not about any other person that we're talking about here. It's about you, okay? So you stand strong, prove yourself. And in no distant time, you can be rest assured that they will know what you represent. So that was something else that we kind of took away from our own session. We need to know who we are. We need to stay focused, and we don't let, anyone, like, I think for me this scripture comes to mind, like the scripture in Timothy where the Bible was saying, don't let anybody despise, your youth, right? So I think the responsibility or the onus is on us, whether as educators or as students, to ensure that nobody, I tell people, I don't give control over my life to anybody. I don't. The only person that I have control over my life personally, my God. But individuals, persons, I'm sorry, so it's important that we know who we are, what we stand for, and of course, nobody, will be able to despise, your person, whether you are black or whether they are human, anyway, just like the other person is. So it's important for us, and that was something that, and lastly, we also talked about the fact that understanding, like I mentioned that a bit earlier on, understanding, is key. Professor Aluko talked about understanding, your workplace and the dynamics. There's dynamics everywhere. You need to be able to take that time to understand the dynamics that is operating where you find yourself. You need to understand it. Understanding is key. And that's why I think the Bible also says that, with all the wisdom is important. It's the principal thing. But with all you're getting, it is important that you get understanding. We can't play down on understanding. It's important that we understand, understand you, understand your system, the dynamics in operation. And as you get good understanding of all of this, you can be rest assured that, the racism, perceived or whatever you call it, might be there, but we'll be able to pull through. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So key themes there are getting your credential recognized, the certification process, there might be barriers there. And also persistence is very important because we are going to have setbacks, whether that's racism instigated or not. There is various types of challenges we're going to experience, but understanding what's considered acceptable or unacceptable in the environment that you work in is also important, that you understand those unspoken norms, the unspoken rules of engagement, the dynamics of the space that you're in, so you know how to move around in a way that is still beneficial to your advancement and your growth in that space. Thank you so much, Dr. Nelben. I'd like to invite everyone now. We've heard so much that has been shared from the different key groups. Are there any reflections that anyone wants to share, comments, your own direct experiences, or someone else's experience that you think is worth sharing with the rest of us this afternoon? Thank you. Someone over there wants to share? Any comments, questions? Yeah.
Thank you, Alisa. In a wonderful revelation season since we started, and I've got to appreciate the input of everyone. Our voices matter, like we've been saying. When you keep quiet over issues, it means everything is okay. But if you raise your voice, it means you have an expression that should be listened to. And I want to believe that's the good thing we're doing. I'm particularly happy because it's coming from the education setting. Because it's like a setting that has no spokesperson. Nobody actually speaks for you. And even when you speak, they think you are too loud. And it's like education is just like taking for granted, it's just education. But as everything starts and ends with it. And until we get to realize that, we may keep on facing more complexities in our society. From my own personal experience, 7 years down the lane, I found myself in Canada. I appreciated so much what Prof spoke on this morning. Of the 7 years, I've spent 6 years in the education system in Canada. 2 years as an education, what do you call it? Education assistant, EA, and substitute teacher in Winnipeg. I moved all around the school. And my first experience of getting to know the system is that what we're coming with, just like Mrs. Nunga said, in all you're getting, get understanding. Well, where we're coming from, we have a lot embedded into our education practices that is not globally kind of acceptable or perceived the way we are acting on it. So some of us will first get our fingers burnt before you now begin to straighten up. And I happen to fall into that category at a time. And I was to substitute as a teacher, and I thought I was in charge. And the students were misbehaving, acting one kind, and you know where we're coming from now. You know, you use your voice, you use your height, you use everything about you, and then you even use your action. And then I went on to use my action. I heard the child. I heard the child and said, I guess now I have to take you to the principal's office if you don't stop this. And I thought I was actually making sense. Only for me later to understand that being a child is an offense. And the child said, I grabbed him so much that there were traces of blood on his on his hand. And like a joke. And it was like being so much handled to the extent that my job was like at risk. And I had to start calling. And people I knew said, that's the way it is here. Oh, that thing can turn to a very big thing. Oh. And I had to start writing letter. Unfortunately, you know, when I said, Adesa is like a twin sister to me. She's not just a consultant, she's a capable hand that, you know, when you have experience, is not about age, it's about knowing what you're doing and really being sure you know what you're doing. And I think humility is one grace that we should all imbibe in the education sector. If you need to really crawl on the floor to get it right, I don't think it reduces your person or your age or your personality. It adds value to you. I got to meet this wonderful lady and I told her my experience. I was like, we have to write. And I wrote that she will never tell you. I mean, I don't know where she got that grace from. That she's tired of. Even when she's stylishly declining your offer, you won't take offense because of the way she will go about it. But at this time, I was fortunate she attended to me. We wrote the letter. Pastor, okay, thank you. You're an army. It's a big deal, you know. And the principal actually showed that I was, to him, a black person. It was like, this thing is going to get you out of the job. And it was almost actually getting there. I'm an author, to the glory of God, in the education field. I went back to my African books that I've written, about 4 books, and I traced my history, and I traced it down to being a mother and a wife, a homekeeper, and having children. So there is no any reason for me to come here and want to endanger a child's life. And, you know, the head of this thing had to go through my history, read my books and everything. We were called for a conference, and at the end of the day, the lady just said, I don't want to mention any division. The lady just said, I can see where you're coming from. Having read your books, I could see, I mean, it's like we have different ways of handling discipline. And it's like, you know, I said for us in Africa, when you hold a child, you handle a child, it's like acceptance, it's like belongingness. You want the child, even though you want to discipline the child, but you don't want the child to feel like, you know, not wanted or something. We don't just grab a child and want to destroy the child. I don't know where we're coming, I don't know where this is coming from. At the end of the day, I was given the privilege of, okay, that particular school, I should not go there again, I should not choose it again, but I'm still free to But unfortunately for them, even though they wanted me back, that was when I got a permanent job that I had to move that year from Winnipeg to up north, where I'm teaching now. And for 4 years now, I've been there. Where am I going? It's not about racism, even though it exists, like everybody has said. It's about you. It's about me. It's about what's your package? What is in you? What have you got to offer? How far have you developed yourself? What stamina do you have to withstand challenges you're surrounded with? How much of confidence of yourself do you have in what you're doing? How well rooted are you in your profession? What is the depth of the knowledge that you claim to know? And how relevant and actually applicable to the setting and situation that you have found yourself? Because you may be all knowledgeable in the whole world, and you are just like a novice where you are. So you just have to understand the setting you are, get to, humble yourself, ask questions, learn, relearn, unlearn, and then blend yourself. I need to say this. In all racism idea, I did not witness any with any of my direct principal that I've been working with, and I've not worked with an African principal. And the job 1 to 2 to 3 that I've got today, I was particularly recommended and referenced by the white, by the indigenous of the communities, of the settings I'm working with. The last place I'm leaving to come back to Winnipeg now, the white lady said, and this can go to here. The white lady said, it is short though, but I'm happy I met you. I value the relationship that we've got together. If I have my way, I won't let you go, but you have to go. And it has been like the second job I got, it was my principal that recommended me. So, what is my secret? When I get to any setting, I want to see what is not in operation that is needful. I want to see the value I'm bringing to the table. I want to see what is needful that eyes are not open to. I want to do something different that will just, bring me into the limelight. Not to advertise myself, but to add value to the system. So I will do things like Dr. Aluko said. It doesn't matter if I have to spend my money. It doesn't matter if I have to stretch myself. Once I'm passionate about anything, I want to really prove that I can do it. And I go extra way, man, to do it, to the benefit of whoever. So in all the cases of the schools, even when I had cases, I will always talk from the perspective of my students, of my teacher, of the system, not necessarily my own selfish interest. Even though at the end of the day, I'm going to be the beneficiary. So the point is, money, dollars, race of greener pasture is good, but much more. What is your makeup? What do you have to offer? What value is in you? If you join a setting, a teaching setting, and everything is going on the way you have met it, it means probably they don't actually need you. That's the way I would say. Then you bring something new to the table that they can really start. This is different. We've not been doing it. In the first school, they were doing magazines. But I introduced a kind of magazine in the school that is like to the division. They were passing it from one end to the other. And for that alone, my principal will always move around with my magazine. Any conference, any meeting, she started this for us. She's been sustaining this. She's been whatever. I will always want to do something different that will add value to the system. I will always want to look out for what is it that will describe my person, that will bring my potential, that will speak of my substance, of my personality. So it's not just good to be lost in the crowd. It's good to also command the crowd. Make a definition of yourself as different from any other person wherever you find yourself. And that will make them to value your word. So don't just go with the mindset, racism, if you are not a racist yourself. Okay? I mean, we all just need to know that I'm different, but I am what? Of value. I'm different, but I am admirable. I'm different, but you need me. I'm different, but I'm a friend to keep. I'm different, but I value relationship. I'm different, but you don't want to do without me. I mean, with that, every home will be a home, wherever we find ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. Maybe another day or before the end of the day today, I will share my own. There's one racism experience that has stayed with me since I came to this country, and it really defined a lot of things of how I see certain things now. But any other contributions before we take a quick stretch break and come back to our final item on the agenda today? Any thoughts, comments, reflections anyone wants to share? I'll take that as a no. So let's take a quick 10-minute stretch break and we'll come back at 3:26. Thank you. An MSc in Geoinformation Sciences and Earth Observation from the University of Twente, Netherlands. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And a BSc in Geology from the University of Ilorin, Nigeria. Dr. Grace Holtz has diverse academic experiences and serving as a lecturer at Osun State University in Nigeria and as a researcher at the University of Manchester in the United Kingdom. She has also gained valuable experience by working as a geo-environmental consultant at UA Antia in the United Kingdom. Dr. Grace arrived in Canada in October of 2019 and fully transitioned into the project management field. As a project specialist at KPMG Canada, she has successfully managed complex, high-impact projects. In addition to her professional work, Dr. Grace is the founder of Success Waymarks Foundation Incorporated, a nonprofit organization that focuses on STEM education and female empowerment. She has mentored over 5,000 students across Africa and continues to inspire and support the next generation of scientists and innovators in Canada. Dr. Grace is deeply committed to empowering new immigrants and actively championing them. Please give Dr. Grace another round of applause. I would now like to invite Dr. Oluyemisi Nuga. Please give her a round of applause as she comes on the stage. Dr. Oluyemisi Nuga is a middle school teacher with the Seine River School Division in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Before immigrating to Canada, she was a lecturer in the Faculty of Agriculture at the University of Port Harcourt, Nigeria. Prior to her lecturing position, she was a principal in a reputable privately owned high school, and she had the privilege to be a middle school and high school educator. She successfully transitioned back into the teaching profession here in Canada after earning a Bachelor of Education degree from the University of Winnipeg. Dr. Nuga holds a PhD in Forest Resources Management with specialization in silviculture and is passionate about education, mentorship, and supporting internationally trained professionals as they navigate pathways into the Canadian education system. She brings valuable insights from her experiences as both an internationally trained educator and a teacher in Manitoba's public school system. Please give her another round of applause. Next, I'd like to invite Oyindamola Alaka. Please give her a round of applause as she comes up as well. Thank you. Oyindamola Alaka is the Director of Programs at Career Track. She's a dynamic nonprofit leader and advocate whose work spans youth development, gender equity, arts and cultural engagement, and grassroots organizing. Her contributions have been recognized with multiple awards, including the Bridge Builder Award at the inaugural Government of Manitoba Mosaic Awards in 2025, celebrating her commitment to social change, equity, and collective prosperity. Please give her a round of applause again. Our fourth speaker is not here right now, but we're quite ahead of schedule, so when she does join us, I will invite her and introduce you to her as well. If I may, I will come join you over here. Okay, so we have a couple of questions for our panelists today. There are specific questions that are targeted at specific people, but there's also questions that is open to everyone to answer. However, you don't have to have a response for every question. Feel free to chime in where you feel necessary. So my first question for everyone is, what does racial inequality in education look like from where you sit today?
Thank you so much. Again, I want to say a big thank you to you, ma'am. And to CIES for the privilege to be part of this program. It's been eye-opening. It's been an opportunity kind of interacting with every other person here. So thank you so much for the privilege. Back to the question, what does racial inequality in education look like from where I sit? For me, I just try to put down one or two things in my notes. So I'm just going to be going into my notes right there to save some time. So for me, it's from where I sit, racial inequality in education could be evident in a situation where a student's race or cultural background influences the opportunity, support, and expectations that they receive, right? And the truth is, every child deserves to be seen, valued, and given equitable chance to succeed. But I must add that for me, I do follow what education looks like in the US and bring it side by side with what we see here in Canada. Making that comparison, I can tell you basically that from the Canadian perspective, every child is being accorded, right? Whatever support that is needed, for that child to be successful. I'll just give a quick example. Over the years in my classroom, interestingly, I've had 2 siblings. Both of them are severely autistic. Just using that as an example. Both of them are from the same parents. Interestingly, I had both of them in my classroom. One of them is non-verbal. The other one is verbal to some extent. And I tell you, looking into the kind of support, right, that our school division kind of brings to the table to ensure that these kids are successful despite their challenges, I tell you, it's huge. It's massive. I remember, there's this. And I'm sure you'll understand that because you're in the system as well. For children that are challenged, for instance, okay, there are different programs, okay, that are put in place to ensure that that kid is successful, okay? For instance, it could be like an IEP, we call it Individual Education Program for the child, and based on the needs and the challenges of the child. Just using this as an example, for these 2 kids in particular, okay, when they are transiting or moving from where they are at right now to another, phase in their studies, okay, there's this, plan that is put in place. It is called PATH, for instance, just using that as an example. And I remember that when we had, that program put in place for one of these 2 siblings, at the end, for me and the mother, interestingly, the mom bears my name. They are of Nigerian descent as well, And at the end of us sitting together with the school management, and it's a guardian of every other person that is needed to ensure that this particular despite the challenges, is successful, right? So by the time we're done with that meeting, guess what? Myself and the mom were just boiling. Like, the time put in, the resources pulled together, it's like, can you imagine the school principal, the vice principal, and then getting some external, people also to come in, the class teacher, maybe the new school that the child is going to, everybody coming together to sit down, leaving every other thing that they have to do, to sit down and put a plan together. And this plan is not 1 year plan. It is a plan for how this kid will be successful all the days of his life, despite the challenges. So like I said at the end, the mom and myself, we were like, who does that? And the meeting will always start from, mom, this is your kid. These challenges are there. What's your dream? Don't forget, this kid is non-verbal. So it's like, mom, what's your dream for this kid? And we start from, mom, this is my dream, this is this is what I expect I should be able to do at this point, at that point. And for each stage, as a child will progress, it's like, what does that child need when he or she gets to that point to be successful, to achieve this goal and all of that? And it's like everything just put in place. What organizations do we need to connect with to ensure that this kid gets the support that he or she requires? And on until that kid becomes who the mother or the parent dreams for him or her to be. So like I said, I just shared that one example, for instance, just to show like the kind of support. So talking about racial discrimination, it's there, but I tell you in terms of support that are given here in Canada and comparing that to what maybe operates in maybe other places like in the US based on, I do follow things happening there, it's huge. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other additions?
Okay, to that. Wow. Okay, thank you so much, Ma, for this program. An eye-opener. So I think the initial part of the part I met has been very, very insightful. So coming to this question, well, for me, I'm not educator in Canada. I have an organization where I mentor people. So racial inequality for me is when people or maybe student doesn't have the access to opportunity, not that they don't have the potential. It could be because of one reason or the other, it could be because of the background or so many things. So that's what I see, and I think Dr. Luda also mentioned that sometimes we see racism from different perspectives. But meanwhile, it might not be. Looking at it as a professional when I came, I didn't start my certification on time. And I could see that, I wasn't employed into a geoscience field or this or that. But that is what, I won't say negligent, but that is not being proactive or to take that step at that time. And again, it's due to so many factors. Maybe people you met when you came, the kind of information, they gave you. So those will really impact whatever your belief is or how fast we're going to go. And you can see it as racism if care is not taken. So that is how I see that. It's when there is no equal access right, which we all agree with, but there are so many other factors that contribute to that, and there are ways in which we can work around it. Like now, I've taken the step to start my profession and my certification, which I'm working on, and with perseverance, like we mentioned earlier on, I'm going to get it. So that's how I see it. There's any addition to that.
Thank you for your contribution. Rita?
Yeah, I think those are both great answers that you both have given. I really love the example about the support given to this child who's autistic and also learning the gaps in the system. For me, racial inequality shows up in the gap that a lot of newcomer and immigrant youth experience when they come into the school system. For example, using myself as an example, when I came from Nigeria in 2012, there wasn't any support to transition me from the Nigerian school system to the Canadian school system. When a lot of youth come into the school system, there is that culture shock that exists for them. And culture shock can have different reactions from youth. And if they don't know how to react to it, or how to support, or don't have any support systems, it can make them fall back in the system. And I think there's a lot of gap when it comes to racial inequality in supporting youth, newcomer youth, immigrant youth, refugee youth, to transition into the Canadian school system. There is nothing like that. We're not educating parents on how the school system works so they can know how to advocate for their youth. Because when a kid doesn't understand how the school system and the Canadian system works, it can make them recluse in the classroom, and can make them quiet, and can affect how they integrate and how they learn. And then their parents don't know how to advocate for them in the system. So I think that is one big gap that exists in our Canadian education system right now, is supporting that transition into the Canadian school system for a lot of immigrants and newcomer youth.
Thank you very much for your contribution, Dr. I spent some years in higher education, and one thing that, to some extent, is a good thing but also has its cons, is when you're also looking at it from students in post-secondary schools, where you're dealing with adults who are expected to know how to handle themselves, but when you're dealing with, say, international students, where they're living a very sheltered environment and come into a country where they're literally having to learn everything, and learning independence, learning a new culture, learning a new environment, learning a new education system. It's a lot. And for us, that was on the administration side, there was a lot of regulations around privacy and respect for confidentiality, because the students are treated as adults. But we know that we come from cultures that are quite conservative, and parents are very involved to a large extent in their children's education. And staff are told you can't share certain information with the parents. Like, they are not the ones we're dealing with the students. So that too can be a barrier in transition and just improving that settlement experience for the youth who don't necessarily, and there's also that fear of authority too, or how they see authority figures from where you're coming from. And so the confidence that a domestic student might have, or someone who was born and raised here, would have to approach a counselor or to approach an admin staff and say, hey, I'm struggling with X, I need help. That confidence might not be as intrinsic or come naturally to an international student that has a very different impression of what authority looks like here and how to approach them. But thank you very much for your contribution, everyone. Before we move further, we have our fourth panelist here, so I want to do the honors to invite her first of all, and then I'll tell you a little bit about her before we move ahead on our panel today. So I'd like to invite Tawela Nkanda to come up stage with us. Please give her a round of applause. Okay, so Tawela Nkanda is an educator, a wellness entrepreneur, a program developer, and community leader whose work centers on whole person education, emotional well-being, and equitable access to opportunity for children, youth, and families. She is the founder of WHOA Fit Wellness, a social enterprise delivering movement, mindfulness, emotional regulation, leadership, wellness programming to schools, community organizations, workplaces, and underserved populations. Through WHOA Wellness, Tawela has developed and facilitated school wellness days, after-school movement clubs, children's yoga and Afro dance programs, summer camps, staff wellness workshops, family programming, seniors wellness initiatives, and trauma-informed programs for Indigenous and newcomer communities. Her background spans education, child and youth development, recreation, and nonprofit leadership. She previously served as child and family manager with YWCA, and youth program manager with Spence Neighborhood Association, where she managed programs, supervised staff, administered budgets, built community partnerships, and adapted youth services throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. She has also supported community facility programming connected to the University of Winnipeg and organizations serving newcomer children and families. Her school, and youth-focused work includes wellness and movement programming with St. John's Revis the Court School, St. James College, College du St. Boniface, Mogo Yoga Winnipeg School programs, and community summer camps. Initiatives combining physical literacy, creative expression, cultural identity, and social connection, alongside her core mindfulness and leadership curriculum. Tawela has facilitated wellness programs for Indigenous youth in northern Manitoba, including the Pass and Cross Lake, and developed programming for African newcomer and multicultural communities through African Communities of Manitoba, Inc., ACOMI. As a nonprofit leader, she serves on the board of directors of ACOMI as Secretary and Public Affairs Officer, contributing to governance, public engagement, program development, partnerships, and oversight of the organization's Building Resilience project. She has also held leadership roles with the Congress of Black Women of Manitoba and taken part in community initiatives focused on women, families, education, and intercultural connection. Tawela holds a Bachelor's of Arts, Advanced in Global Political Economy from the University of Manitoba, and is currently pursuing a Master's of Education beginning fall 2026. Congratulations. She is an extensively trained yoga and wellness instructor with more than 800 hours of specialized training and over 10,000 hours of teaching experience, including advanced training in children and family yoga, trauma-informed practices, mindfulness, restorative movement, meditation, barre, and personal training. Her approach to education is grounded in the belief that students learn best when they feel safe, represented, connected, and supported as a whole people. She advocates for education systems that recognize the connection between academic achievement, mental wellness, physical health, cultural identity, family engagement, and community belonging. Please give to a lot of round of applause for her. Thank you. Okay, so I do not want to leave you out of the conversation, but I also hesitate to put you on the spot. So I'm going to go straight to the first question, which our other panelists have had the opportunity to respond to. And the question is, what does racial inequality in education look like from where you sit?
Yeah, so I think Loinda gave the answer that almost verbatim. We know each other outside of this. We're in a few girl groups, so the thinking will be very much in alignment. So, yeah, children need to feel safe. They need to feel safe in schools. I took down a note about there's no transitional system or program from even coming from the Malawian system, coming to Canada. It was shocking. And yeah, so I would say inequality, it looks like kids being told that they are expected to, well, no, let me rephrase this. I feel as though, from my experience, I was expected to either be a problem or to be more mature than I was. And so it's either you have to be the leader and doing this and this and this. It's almost like immaculate execution, or look, she's the problem and this is why and this is why. So I think kids need to feel safe. A kid can't go into any space and wonder if they belong. A kid needs to know right away that they belong, and then that has to come from our community, our leaders, our parents. If a parent can't navigate a system, then how can they then teach their kid how to feel safe or how to ask questions to be able to feel safe and create a safe experience? And so inequality looks as though just not seeing our kids as actual children, but seeing them as either a problem or expecting them to be more mature than they should be.
Thank you very much for that contribution. And there's a very thin line there, because you either have to be excellent, like you said, to really just stand out and people can see glaringly that, okay, she's not the problem, or there is an expectation or perceived notion that because by default of maybe what you look like, you might just be the challenging kid in the classroom. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so this question goes to everyone. Dr. Grace, you're free to not answer this if you don't want to, but I'll just share it with everyone. Tell us about a specific moment when you felt the system worked against you rather than for you. What did the staff, the adults, do or not do that maybe failed in that specific scenario? If anyone feels like sharing.
Well, the way I've loved to approach this, maybe I have a different approach to it. Yeah, maybe as an educator, like for me, being an educator from Nigeria, like I shared previously, back home in Nigeria, all that I did all my career life, was just being in the classroom, and of course, the expectation will be, now that I'm here, you should recognize that I'm an educator. You should recognize that I have years. At the time I was coming in here, maybe I have 15 years plus kind of experience already teaching. So the expectation really will be, oh yeah, that should be recognized. But again, on the other end, my husband and myself were both lecturing back in Nigeria. We're both lecturers, and coming in, it was like our mindset was that we're going into a new environment. So in a way, it was like we were prepared that this is a different environment entirely. Whatever we've learned, both of us do have our PhDs and all of that. But then it was obvious to us that when we come into this new system, there are steps we need to take to make sure that we get back. My husband, of course, is a soil scientist. When he came in, he went back to U of M. Okay, he did, like a diploma program to become a certified agrologist, right? Here, and of course, to God's glory right now, is with Manitoba Agriculture. He's a manager in one of the, managing some research stations. And for me as well, it was like, yes, teaching is what I'm passionate about. That's my passion. I love it. I enjoy it. So for me, it was like, if this is what I've got to do, to get back into what I love to do, then that's what I've got to do. So personally, I didn't have any issues with, this is what I've got to do, and that's what I've got to do. So the next thing for me was, what do I need to do? Before we came in, because we knew that we had to go through some of all of this, so we had sent in our, credentials to West, to evaluate that, everything that we had. We sent it in, and they had to evaluate what does it translate into, coming in here, So it was like for us, we were prepared in a way. So it kind of made it a lot easier for us to transit. So for me, in a way, I think the onus is on us, if you ask me. Yeah, the expectation is you're leaving for a new place. And the old saying goes that when you're in Rome, you do what the Romans do, right? So we have that expectation that when we come in, we should be told everything. They should, but actually, the onus is on us, if you ask me. You made that decision to come. You did. That's one thing that my husband will always tell us. It was our choice. It was our decision. So if that is the case, it lies on us. The onus lies on us, together with our children, right? To ensure that we get the necessary education that we needed. Like, I know, we had Manitoba Start. Manitoba Start was where we started from, learning, making connections. As an environmentalist, when we first came in, for me, it was like, there was this bridging program for internationally trained environmentalists. I kind of, tagged on to that program. So learning, so it was a 3-month program, a bridging program. So how do I get back to being an environmentalist and to become certified as an environmentalist? On a second thought, I went that route, and then once I discovered that, I want to be in the classroom. That's just my love, that's my passion, kind of, okay, let's get back to where we need. So those connections, and I think for me, Manitoba Start is huge because it kind of connects you to the different, resources, the different, organizations that you needed to work with. It was from Manitoba Start that I knew about. I don't know if they still have that program in place now. Success Skills. Success Skills is it was from Manitoba Start that I went to Success Skills. After going to Success Skills, I had to do an internship with the Naturalist branch here in Winnipeg, understudying, getting to learn about, so you're not expecting, that's my thinking personally, that's my opinion about this. You're not expecting that the system, they've done what they have to do, they've given you opportunity to come, so now the onus is on you. That's my thinking personally, to make sure that all that you need to do to get to the next point, the information out there really, let's be honest with ourselves. But I think just like Dr. Grace rightly said, sometimes the people that you meet with, will go a long way in you getting the right information that you need or know, So for my husband and myself, even with our kids, of course the onus was on us to help them to transit, better. And for me, being an insider in the education system here, if there's something I've seen, sometimes when our kids come in, talking about transiting, okay, you as a teacher, of course the school, they want your kids to succeed, as from an insider point of view now. But sometimes what I have experienced, or what I have seen in most cases, sometimes maybe myself as a teacher, I'm noticing something about this particular kid. And maybe together I'm working, we have our school team, the resource teacher, the school principal, and everybody, and I'm giving them some feedback. This is what I'm noticing. And we want to put up together, there's always a plan. This plan, how do we support? And all these plans are aimed at supporting each kid to be successful. We understand that they are coming from a different environment. But if you care to know, one thing I've noticed, when such plans are to be put in place, sometimes parents, when they're called to the table, this is what we are noticing. This is what we think we should do. We need to put up this plan. Because that is not what we are used to in Nigeria. Most times, parents will be like, no, can you please not, let's do that? Because they are thinking about it in a different way. Because that's not something we are used to doing back home. But whatever plan is being put up in the school, the plan is to support your kid, just so that that kid is successful to whatever level. For instance, some kids coming, in Nigeria, we don't discover, we don't dictate some things. A kid might have learning disability. Oftentimes, in my classroom, I've seen a kid, we're doing everything, the kid wants to learn, it's obvious to everybody, the kid is participating, but at the same time, you're noticing that something is not working out. The kid is in class learning, but the kid is just not making that progress as expected. Maybe there's a learning disability. So this next thing to do, you want to troubleshoot. And for you to troubleshoot, you need to refer. You need to make a referral. The referral might be, they might be asking the school psychologist to come in, because that's the expert now, not the teacher, not the principal. But when it comes to the issue of school psychologist, or speech pathologist, or schools, parents usually have a pushback. It's like, no. And once the pushback is there, they're not going to force anything on you. You get it? So I think that's where the disconnect is. Because most parents are coming in with this idea of Nigerian mindset, if I can put it like that, but it's totally different from how things actually work in the school system here, So for me, I think, again, the onus is on us to ensure that you are successful in this new environment. So whatever information that you need to get, whatever programs have been put in place, make yourself available, go for the program, learn. I know it's challenging, you're coming in, and then it's like the next thing we want to do is, how do I get a job? Right? That's where the challenge is, I know. But if we can apply ourselves, learning, this environment we find ourselves in is learning. Information is huge. Where do you get the information from? From those programs that have been put in place. So when we, for some reasons, genuine reasons, I know, keep away from such programs, in my opinion, it is detrimental, to our own, ability to be able to move forward and transit, into the system as we need to. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other additions?
I think like everything you said, Dr. Nirga, is very beautiful and 100%. For me, as someone who came into the system as a teenager, my success story is because my parents advocated for me, because the system did not work in support of me. I wish there was all these beautiful things that you talked about, I wish it existed. But when I started in high school, my success was because my parents advocated and said, no, you can't treat my child this way, you can't do this to my child. When you come from Nigeria, the Nigerian system really celebrates the child who is quiet, who's respectful, doesn't speak up in the classroom, and you come that and you embody that in the community classroom, then you're labeled as, oh, there's learning difficulties or there's something wrong with the child. But they don't understand that there is just cultural nuances and cultural differences. And if I didn't have a guidance counselor who understood what I was going through, supported me to be that outspoken person, advocate for myself in the classroom, like, it's a little things, like, I noticed when I was in high school during exam time, the kids were asking for like dictionaries to like clarify the definition of certain words. And in Nigeria, you can't ask for a dictionary when you're writing an exam. That's a taboo. And so coming here and like those little nuances that you don't know you're supposed to do in the classroom, like advocating for yourself, asking for help, all of those things, having to learn those things. And my parents never advocated for me to get the support, the understanding, and the resources that I needed, I wouldn't have succeeded in the education system. And so for me, I'm grateful that my parents took all the resources, like my parents went to Manitoba Stat, opportunity for performance, all of the things. And I'm a success story because of that. But not everybody has that opportunities. The opportunities that exist in the south end of the city is vastly different from the opportunities that exist in the inner city of the city or in the province. Like there's a lot of Black youth up north in Thompson who don't have the support that exists for the south end of the city in Winnipeg. So I think it's really important that we advocate for the supports to be across the board in the province, not just in the privileged areas in the city, because that's the biggest issue that I'm seeing from my standpoint right now.
Thank you. Thank you for that insight. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll add. First, a funny story, and then we'll get more serious. So when I was in, I think it was grade 7 or grade 8, there was this one teacher. I swear she just didn't like me, but maybe that's a personal opinion. You can tell me after the story. Okay. So I was sitting about this length from where my classmate was, and she asked for an eraser. This was an art class, and so I handed it to her, and she took it. And the teacher just got really upset. She wanted me to physically get up and walk around the table and then hand it to her. And I just refused. And I thought she was joking mostly, so I was kind of being like laughing about it, like there's no way I'm doing that, there's no way. And she's like, no, like either do that or leave the classroom. I was like, okay, well I guess I'm going. And so we left the classroom, and because I was so willing to leave the classroom, that made her even more upset. So then she escalated, oh, we're gonna call your mom. And I'm like, oh. What she didn't know is my mom was an educator in Malawi and working a job she did not want or like in Canada. So she stopped the classroom, removed me, called my mom from a separate room, and she put my mom on speaker. So I just remember my mom being so surprised, being like, okay, so this is the reason you're stopping your job and my job? No. And my mom just hung up the phone, and then I just looked at her, and she looked at me, and I was like, are we going back to class? And she's like, I am, you're not. And I was like, okay. And so there's been moments like that where I'm just, I don't know, navigating the system can be weird. And I also think another thing is the Canadian microaggressions, where in some places, like, I'll say Florida, I'll be honest, Florida, you can tell the racism is very overt. They'll tell you, I'm not serving you because you're Black. And you're like, okay, that's fine. Here, it kind of takes you a minute, and it's like, what? You know, you can almost go crazy trying to navigate and think about these experiences that you have. And so, somebody I know called me, and they were talking about an incident that happened in a school, and a teacher was questioning the level of presence their child has because their child is autistic. And the teacher was questioning that in front of the child's mother and in front of the child. And the child obviously could recognize that there was something going on, if not the full conversation. And so when the parent called me and we had the conversation, I then had to put on my advocate hat and straps and all that. We removed the kid from the program, we removed the kid from the school. The kid's gonna be in a new school. We went to the superintendent, we went to the assistant superintendent. So we have to advocate for our children. My mom taught me, as soon as that issue happened, had to, but we're in the system, it's on us. These things are not gonna stop. It would be nice if there were more programs to help us assimilate so we could learn how to transition, but it has to be on us. So I say advocate for yourself, advocate for your kids, advocate for each other. And this is where we're at, so let's do what we can to make it work, yes?
Thank you so much, Tamara. I just love to add something to that quickly there. I completely appreciate what both of you have said. But again, for me, I think if there's anything wanting, this program's project, I think it is about us taking the bull by the horn. Like, we talk about racism, but for me, I was sharing while we were in those breakout sessions. I think it is high time, that we start, being intentional. I think the word is intentionality. Being intentional, we ourselves and our families, our children. Personally, I will always say, for me, my children, they are my children. They are not government's children. So for me, the onus is on me to train them. The training involves, when you go to school and this happens, what are you expected to do? I'm not going to leave them just out there in the cold. So even from our families, that's my point. From our families, it is important that we understanding again. It is important that we understand this is different. That's the truth. For me, being an educator in Nigeria and coming in here and going into the schools, it is totally different. We'll be deceiving ourselves, and doing ourselves a lot of disservice if we want to hold on to what we've always known from where we're coming from. That's the truth. And that's my point. My point is, it is our responsibility as parents, as individuals that are in places of influence, right? If we have such gatherings as we are having right now, let parents be made to know that this is your duty. This is your responsibility. The system that your kid is in right now is different. Just like in my own setting, I have the, interestingly, I'm the only black teacher in my school division as it stands today. So for me, I see myself as an agent of change there. So when they're talking about like a kid coming into the classroom, of course, for us, based on our culture, you're not talking to somebody and looking the adult straight in the eye. And most of our kids have been labeled just because maybe they're talking to the teacher and the kid, rather than looking the teacher straight in the face or the principal, the kid is being, picked upon and labeled like, the kid is timid, is not confident, is not. So the responsibility is on us. You need to understand the culture, the system that you're in. So kid, when you're going to school, sit down together as a family. You need to set your kid up for success. That's my point. Sit your kid up and talk about these things. Now we're in a different environment. When you go to school here, the expectation is, like I'm talking with my colleagues in school, I'm talking with my principal, we're looking each other straight in the eye. I know back home that would not happen, but the system we are in right now, that is where we are at. So we need to be able to educate them. This is how it goes here. This is the expectation. For me as a teacher, I was sharing in my group as well. The first 2 weeks of every school year, I don't do nothing curriculum-wise. I don't. What my goal is for the first 2 weeks is, I'm getting my students to understand me. What are my expectations? What are my expectations for myself? What are my expectations for you? We want to understand each other as a class group. So when we understand each other, then we can run together. I believe I'm big on foundation. So I think, still going back to that, in as much, I'm happy that your mom was standing in the gap for you there. She could, do that advocacy. and I'm happy that mom also said that, but more importantly, going forward, for the sake of, this that we have the opportunity to do, it is important that where we have younger ones, it is important for us to put it out there, to be intentional. This is a different system. This is how things operate here. They need to understand it. It is based on that understanding that they are going, on, and we can set them up for success. But if we downplay things, then, well, things will keep happening, and of course we'll continue. But it's like, racism. But there are things that we can do to shut it down. And for our kids to know first and foremost who they are. I tell people, I know who I am. It doesn't matter who you are. Even Donald Trump cannot talk down on me, right? So these are things at home that we can start doing with our kids. Talk to them. Let them be certain, be sure of who they are. So that when they get to school, you don't need to be loud about it. But your person, they know that you don't mess around with this person. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think all of these experiences are valid. One gap I do want to acknowledge here is sometimes is the language barrier. Many of us here might be privileged to come from places where you speak the national language here, so even your settlement experience would look vastly different from someone who's coming here with no lick of English. And even for parents, or even when I worked in the settlement sector, I worked a lot with government-assisted refugees and privately sponsored refugees, and the immense pressure on parents to be able to even know the right questions to ask is another thing. So how can you meaningfully support your child when you're still just trying to figure things out? Many times they have to go to English classes, as well as finding jobs, and many of these jobs are really precarious work because, again, they don't have the language levels to be able to function in certain other types of fields that they probably even want to get into. And then you get into things like even certification, credential recognition, and even knowing where to go to find information. So I want us to recognize that that too can be a challenge. And one of the programs, while I was still in the settlement sector, that existed then, and it was in a lot of school divisions, Winnipeg School Division, Pembina Trails, a bunch of them, was having intercultural support workers. I thought that was a valuable addition to helping immigrant students settle in school. But we would have these life skills programs that could also add towards the credit for students to be able to graduate. And I think that made a difference because we would have these sessions where we invite parents, and we were with the bridge between the school and the students, where we come in to help parents understand what their expectations were, what their responsibilities were, and bringing in translators, interpreters really made a world of difference. So I think there is a collective effort from both us as parents, if you have the ability and the means to be able to do it or to know how to navigate a new system. But for those who are still trying to figure things out, or those who are coming from really tough environments and having to flee for their safety, I think there's other things that they're thinking about while also trying to be of support. And many times there's that intergenerational role reversal where it's even the kids that are taking their parents to appointments, that are doing the interpretation for their parents. So there's a lot of struggle there as well that we have to recognize too, that could also impact the students' experience even in school. But yeah, just wanted to add that. Thank you everyone for the addition. I'm going to move on because I'm just mindful of the time here to wrap up in another 10 minutes. So I want to ask, because we've talked a lot about lived experiences of racism, but I will be curious to also learn, and Dr. Nugai, this is for you, to learn what structures inside the school, whether we're looking at the curriculum, discipline policy, academic staffing, do you see reproducing racial inequality, even without anyone intending harm? Sorry, that's a long question.
Thank you so much for that question. Well, maybe this will be a good opportunity to share my own story. You know, well, for me, like I said, coming in here, it was obvious that for me to get back to what I love to do most, I had to go back to school, I had to retrain, and that was exactly what I did. Before coming in here, I'm somebody, I believe in myself so much. I don't let nobody, like I said earlier, I don't give control over my life to anybody. I believe, like, I was sharing in my group, like, way back in my teenage years, somehow, a line of the song of late Whitney Houston just stuck with me for some reasons. I promised myself way back in my teenage years that I was not going to live in the shadows of anybody, right? And that just got stuck with me for some reason. So coming in here to Canada, that was the mindset I came with. It was like, whoever you are, yes, I'm going to do what I've got to do. I'm going to respect you as much as I, but you cannot look down on me. You cannot despise me. You can. It's a choice. That's what I believe. I don't give you that power to want to despise me. You cannot. I don't give you that opportunity to do that to me. So coming in, for sure, I went through the program, and God helped me. I remember when I was finishing and I was going to get a position. Somehow, I want to believe that was just God working in my favor. I just had this prayer coming to mind for me. And the prayer was, and I was praying it before I got the position I got. I'm like, God, bless me with a position where I am needed. That was my prayer then. And I tell you, God brought this position my way. I saw the advert on Indeed, put in my application, and then went for the interview. I finished the interview this morning. Before the end of the day, I got a call back from the school principal, you got the position. I'm like, what, really? Just like that? And once I got into that position, yeah, there were people trying to do whatever they thought they wanted to do, like we've all been talking about. But for me, again, I knew who I was. So whatever anybody was doing, I get this. I know why I'm here. I know who I am. I know what I'm about here for. I didn't come here because of any one of you. So I went about my business. I was doing what I thought I had to do, not minding whatever it was that I had to do. Yeah, in my grade group then, we had 4 classes, so it was like 3 teachers against 1. Yeah, and my first class, it was something. It was like the parent said, talking to me much later, I said, she heard that my first year in this school was brutal. I said, brutal is an understatement. Yeah, but if anything, I knew God was with me. I knew what I had to do, and well, whatever they had to do, they had to do. My point, I don't let that get in my way, right? I know who I am. I know what I've got to do. I do what I've got to do. If they do that's what they know how to do. I can't stop them, you know. Yeah, so looking at all of this put together, for me, again, I think it's about me, focusing on me, rather than letting whoever dictate what happens to me. And if there's a message I want to leave here today, I think that will be the message for me. Like for our children coming in, we need to come to that point where we are, doing the much that we can as people of influence, as parents, as, you know what? You've got to be sure of who you are. You've got to know who you are. That's the only way that we can overcome whatever it is that we call racism, whatever name we decide to call it. That's the only way, in my opinion, that we can overcome it. You knowing who you are and standing strong for you. Yes, if you need, like in my classroom, I teach my students, advocate for yourself. When you need to advocate for yourself, advocate for yourself. But as well as I teach them that, I teach myself that too. When I need to speak up for myself, when I need to advocate for myself as well, I do that. So working on ourselves, working on the people that we have influence over, that goes a long way in ensuring that together we get to that point where we are open to get to. If we want to talk about racism and discrimination from here till tomorrow, nothing will change. It will still remain the same. And I tell people, when I was in Nigeria, interestingly, when my husband and myself got married, we didn't live in the western part of Nigeria where we're from. First, once we got married, we lived in the east. We were in Umuahia in Abia State for 7 years. So talking about discrimination and racism, for me, way back, enough of it. So coming into this system, I wouldn't know if God took me through that just to prepare my family and myself, but talking about, we call it tribalism and nepotism in Nigeria. It's there. It is everywhere. It is not just a Canada thing. And that's another truth I want to leave this place with. That's the truth. It is everywhere. So the thing is, how do you go past this? That's my outlook to this meeting today. How do you go past it? Because it's not going away. You know, my husband got a job with Federal Michael Okpara University of Agriculture in the East then. And yeah, for me to get a position there, I had lots of stories. People that were from there, you know, he got ease before we got married. And then once we got married, I was like, okay, I need a position here. I didn't get one. All through our 7 years there, I didn't get one. But God being gracious and merciful, I got a job in a high school there. I rose to become a principal in the East. Right? So, talking about discrimination, people will always do what they have to do based on what they understand or what they know. But you don't let people stop you. So once you know where you're going and what you're about, focus. That's what I tell people. My students, my black students, and I have lots of them in my classroom. You know, that's always my message. Don't let the system stop you. Stand up for yourself and educate them. And like I said, I think this is something I wish that I would take away from this. Every place of influence, every place that we find, let's talk to our kids. Let's be intentional about letting them know. This place is different. It's not Nigeria. It's not maybe anywhere in East Africa. It is different. The way they see things, they're not being bigoted. It's not that they are being mean, but this is how they've always done their things. This is how they know how to do things. Now we are coming with our own ways of doing things. So we need to educate them. It takes time. It takes patience. It takes us, you know, being intentional about it and just setting our kids, our children up for that success that they need and not letting anyone stay grounded in, oh, they are racist and you just get stuck. No. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Absolutely. Thank you. In the interest of time, I have one more question for everyone. So in 1 minute, we're going to do a speed round. I want you to share, if you could change one policy, one practice, or one attitude tomorrow, what would it be? And what needs to be in the room to make it happen?
Okay, yeah, I have the mic. Yeah. So yeah, for me, yeah, looking at it from the space I say and what I do, I would see like something like mentorship should start early, not just one thing, like maybe just the guardian and counselor to all the whole school. Maybe from like grade 6 or in the middle school, a student should have someone whom they look at or look to that, oh, this is someone I can follow, this is someone that is doing writing. And also in our community, like what Dr. Nuga said, that we need more of education. Because even the parents that are to tell these younger ones they are bringing, they don't have the information, if I'm not mistaken. So many sectors, so many organizations should rise to help do these things. Like this program, it should not just be one of it should be more of it to educate more people by the grace of God, right? So then when even the parents have this right information, they'll be able to educate their children or their words and will be able to position better. Just in a summary, honestly, I would say I agree totally with what Dr. Nuga said. It's all about understanding the system and have that focus that, oh, we are here now and we have to move forward. Not just still tied down with what we have before. So that is what I would love to change. I really understand him.
Yeah, 100% agree. I also want to acknowledge everything that Dr. Nunez shared today. I think it's so beautiful that a lot of Black kids are going to go through your classroom and have a role model, someone that looks like them so they know what they can become in the future, because you can't be what you don't see. So I think it's really important that you exist in that space. And I also acknowledge everything that you have been through in your school. You're a very resilient person, and thank you for sharing your story today. So it's really beautiful to hear. For me, I think going back to the resource sharing and the competences training, I think there needs to be more partnerships between communities and school divisions. One part of that is ensuring that there is more cultural sensitivity training for the educators. So it's not about doing a professional development session for one day and that is it, but it should be a series of sessions. If they have to do math training in to get their education degree, then they should be able to do cultural sensitivity training to know how to develop cultural sensitive curriculums. Designing cultural sensitive classrooms is also important, because for example at Career Trek, how we design our classrooms, so we do career development programming, but we do it in the classroom and in workplaces. And how we design the classroom is also important to us, because we know once a kid walks into a classroom, their experience starts from every single interaction they're having with an educator. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is, I think there's a lot of resources in the city, but everything exists in silos. So how are we equipping parents to have that understanding and that knowledge of all the resources that exist for them and how they can access it, and how are we supporting it? Because I think so many times we create so many resources, but there isn't that support to help people access the resources. Yes, they have to fill a form, but is someone helping them fill a form? Is someone telling them the website they need to go to? Is there someone that is holding info sessions in their languages? All of those things need to come together so that we can support the children to excel for the future.
Thank you. Thank you.
Everything you said. Were you looking at my notes? No, everything you said, policies, structures, all those don't matter if the implementation isn't going properly and if communities aren't actually able to access those resources. And so, so much to think about. You've given me a lot to think about with my role as a board member for ACOME. We need to talk more. Yeah, there's so much work to be done. I would also encourage young women to then get involved with politics. I think
running for school trustee.
And so you can't be what you don't see. And so for us to be able to make those changes, we need to be involved in the systems, creating those culturally sensitive programming and not just the one-stop thing. Like absolutely everything you said, I completely agree with, but let's get our communities more involved with the schools, the parents, the aunties, the uncles. From my experience, when the system fell short, it was the community that picked me up. I honestly wouldn't be running for a school board trustee if I didn't go through your program. And so, yeah, we have to be there for each other, we have to advocate, but most importantly, we need to be a part of creating those systems to make sure that the people that look like us, that actually need those resources, are getting what they need from them.
Thank you.
And for me, if there's something that I wish would change, I'm wishing that we'll have a change of mindset. Because I believe that mindset is everything, personally. I believe that mindset is everything. And why I said that is, for us as parents coming in, the way we see the space, the things we say, don't forget our kids are listening. It goes a long way, okay, to determine how and what they will become. If we keep saying that, yeah, oh, the system this, the system that, the system, they're hearing it. And I tell you, the system will work on them. The system will limit them, because that's what will happen. Why? Because we are mouthing it, that's what we believe in. But again, a scripture that is coming to mind from, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. You can't go past what you're thinking. If you think racism is there and it is meant to hold you down, it will hold you down. And for me, if there's anything, I think it's about our families. It is about parents being intentional and letting them know. And I don't know, Ma, I don't know about you in your school division in the north, but I know I've had opportunity to be in several school divisions before I got my permanent position as well. But I know one thing that is sure, and talking with other educators as well, the kids that actually give the most trouble, I don't know about your school division, they are our kids. They are. I can tell you that categorically as an insider. I've been in Pembina Trails, I've been in Winnipeg School Division, I've been in Louisville, I've been in my own school division, Seven Oaks, our children. So it tells me that there's a problem with our. So if we're doing every other thing and we're not going back to the basics, we're wasting time. That's my thinking. Yeah, so I think going back to the basics, the foundation, the family, whatever needs to be fixed there, we need to fix it, and then we can run. Thank you.
Thank you. Please give them a round of applause. Thank you so much. Well, that brings us to the end of our panel discussion. Thank you to all of our panelists for sharing your wisdom, your gifts, your expertise, your experience. I'm sure we're leaving the session a bit more inspired, living with optimism and just that renewed sense of hope and eagerness to show up differently. And that mindset shift, I think, is huge as well. That you only go as far as your limitations and what you think are your barriers. Right, so thank you all for being here today. I want to give them another round of applause as they return to their seats. And yeah, we're going to be wrapping up our event today.
I know they're not leaving, but just as the sign of my name, then they can have Sorry, don't mind us staying. Okay.
It's been a full day of so many things that have been shared, all of the lived experiences, the stories, the inspiring speakers that we've heard from today, but also hearing from our panelists and bringing their own expertise and experience from inside the classroom and within the community. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for your patience. We're officially at the end of this event. I want to say a big thank you to the staff, the volunteers that have made today possible. But to end us on a high note, I would like to invite CEAS Board Chairman, Pastor Ademola Attila, to come up to say the closing remarks. Please give him a round of applause. Thank you.
Sorry, please let me crave your indulgence. When I'm talking, I will be saying, praise the Lord. I will be referring to God because that's my life. That's my whole being. Without Him, I can't be here. By the special grace of God, we thank God for, we thank God for what we have had. We thank God for the discussion. And but let me put in this. Racism, tribalism, discrimination is the nature of humanity. Until you are changed, you will not know where you are the advocate of it. It's a subconscious thing. And one thing is that I was in a place where I met with the people of different race, and before you know it, they begin to speak their language, even in the midst of you discussing. Yeah. But I'm a person, because I'm an intercessor, I go to different nations, I relate with people, I connect with people, so I overlook it and I flow with them. You understand? To the point that in that place of that environment, everywhere I go, teachers, students will say, Adi, because I'm open-minded. So let's cultivate the habit of being open-minded wherever we find ourselves. Don't be taken unaware and you are reacting silently and begin to label them as racist. And after some time, they now employ a black guy. Before you knew it, the black guy began to associate with me. Before we know, it will begin to speak in our own language. So it's a subconscious thing. So when we are going into any place, you notice it. Have a positive mindset. Let's have a positive mindset. Most of, like what you said in closing, you said some of the students that give problem in those places in schools are black children. Yes, because their parents are also witness some certain negative backlash in terms of racism. And they go home and began maybe discussing it and looking at the way they are dejected. And so the children receive the vibes, take it to school, and they are also manifesting it. So let's present ourselves in a positive way. Without it, we can't change anything. God will help us where we have found ourselves, and it shall be well in Jesus' name. Good afternoon, distinguished guests and special guest speaker in absentia, esteemed panelists, educators, students, parents, community leaders, partners, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Board of Directors and the entire team of Covenant Information Empowerment Services Incorporated (CIS), it is my honor to express our heartfelt appreciation to everyone who made today's roundtable a success. First and foremost, we give thanks to the Almighty God for His grace, wisdom, and protection throughout this event. Our sincere gratitude went to our special guest speaker, Professor. Thank God for his initial message, and also we thank God. We also extend our profound appreciation to the Canadian Race Relations Foundation for the generously supporting the initiative. Your partnership demonstrates a shared commitment to promote equity, inclusion, and positive change in education. To our distinguished panelists, Oyinda Mola Alaka, Dr. Ayo Grace, Oluwadebi, Dr. Oluyemisi Nuga, and Towela Mukanda. Towela Mukanda, God bless you. You are from Malawi, right? Yes. Maybe the next year or 2 years I will be in Malawi for evangelistic program. You're most welcome. God bless you. So thank you all for sharing your knowledge, experiences, and passion. Your voices have inspired meaningful conversation and offered practical insight. To our moderator, our moderator, Adesua. You remember the day I met you at the bus stop? You remember? It was at the bus stop. We were waiting for the what do we call it? Those buses. You understand which was waiting, and from there it led to one thing or the other, and that was about 7 years ago, right? Thank God. So we appreciate you for nurturing this. This covenant seed is a baby. You know, at times when you are discussing with my wife, I said, I just know what she's doing. When you know, there was a time you began to give some Saturday. I said, no, this is your baby. You will do it. Silently we discuss. So, well, God bless you. We appreciate what you have been doing. So, to the volunteers, the planning committee, planning the scene, thank you for your dedication and excellent service. Finally, to every participant, thank you for your presence, your willingness to share your experience. Your voices matter, and together we have taken another important step toward building a more equitable future for the Bar. African leaders and educators. As we live today, let us remember that today's conversation is only the beginning. Together, we can continue to amplify our voices, challenge the barriers, and shape the future. Thank you all for coming. May God bless you.
Amen.
Our community, may God bless our communities. May God bless Canada. Have a safe journey home. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for being here. I think all that needs to be said has been said. So this is the beginning of more conversations to come, but also there's collective wisdom in this room. So as we leave here today, I want you to think of something that you can start to do differently or to encourage others to have that mindset shift towards their own futures here in Canada. And we'll be sending out more communications around just sharing your experience on this event today. So please take some time to provide some feedback to us. I think there's some feedback forms that are also have been provided. So please just take time to let us know what we can do to get better. I've been reminded that I also need to recognize the person that brought me into this world and sent me to school in Canada. So shout out to Adekunbi Ero, Mrs. Adekunbi Ero, my mother, over here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for going everywhere with me, and I appreciate your presence here today. Thank you, everyone, and have a good evening, and see you next time.